Hi, my name's Sheila Archer, and I'm a researcher for the Appaloosa Project. Today, Rebecca Bellone and I are going to be presenting a seminar for you on Appaloosa genetics. So I'll just give Rebecca a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Dr. Rebecca Bellone, and I'm a professor at the University of Tampa. And Sheila and I actually met via a phone conversation something like 11 years ago. Is that right, Sheila?
Yep.
And we have been happily collaborating together ever since. And we are very excited to have this opportunity to teach you a little bit about what we have learned along the way in the last 11 years. So with that, I think that we should begin with one of the most frequently asked questions, which is, how can two loudly marked Appaloosas produce a solid non-Appaloosa horse? And the answer is, it's in the gene. But not necessarily genes like you would think genes, you know, the kind that you wear or that a horse might wear, like seen here in the picture. Instead, we're talking about genes that are inherited. So what is a gene? A gene is a discrete unit of heredity. In that, it's a piece of DNA that gets inherited from mom and dads to the offspring. And the gene that we are going to be talking about today is called the LP gene, or the leopard complex spotting gene, also referred to as the Appaloosa gene. We call it the LP gene because LP is a short symbol for leopard complex spotting. It's important that you understand what the LP gene does. So the LP gene allows for Appaloosa coat patterns, and it also allows for Appaloosa characteristics to be visible.
All right. Now, people who breed or who are interested in Appaloosa coat patterning know that Appaloosas come in a really wide variety of coat patterns. So we have some examples here showing everything from just a few white flecks on the rump up to a completely white horse, sometimes with spots and sometimes not. These are all part of what's called the leopard complex spotting pattern group. Okay, they're all included, but they look very different from each other. One thing that all of these horses share, though, is what are called sometimes by breeders characteristics. We refer to them as LP-associated traits, and there are 4 that always show up either at birth or sometimes afterwards when a horse has inherited LP. And these are stripes of unpigmented material in the hooves, white sclera around the pigmented part of the eye, which is called the iris, mottled skin, and this would be on the thin-skinned regions of the body. So around the eye, on the muzzle, in the anal genital region, these parts will have light and dark blotches of skin. And also these horses over time will develop what's called varnish roan patterning, which is a unique type of roaning that only occurs in horses with LP.
So, as Sheila mentioned, the LP gene is responsible for both the spotting pattern that you see on the horse and those associated characteristics. So how does the LP gene do this? Well, the LP gene comes in what we call 2 forms, or 2 alleles. We have the dominant form of the gene, in which we signify by capital letters, or the recessive form of the gene, the other form, which we signify by lowercase letters. So in the picture, in the diagram at the top, you see we have a picture of a chromosome. That is the structure in which DNA is inherited from. And then you see that if we zoom out, we can see a strand of that DNA and a section of that strand being the gene. And in the top figure, that's represented in green because that's one form of the gene. And then in the bottom figure, which is still the same gene, it's the LP gene, but it's a different form. And so that's denoted by purple, letting you know that it's an alternative form of the same gene. Green being the dominant form, the capital letters, and purple being the other form of the gene, the lowercase letters. This LP gene comes in two forms, a dominant form and a recessive form. And we say that this gene is an incompletely dominant gene, which means that we can have sort of three different appearances, meaning that in one case, when a horse inherits both dominant forms, one dominant form from its mom and one dominant form from its dad, we say that that horse is homozygous for the LP gene. Homo meaning same, they have the same form was inherited from both parents. Then we say that that gene is fully on, or you get, as you see in the top figure, a horse that looks different than when a horse only inherits one copy of the dominant form, and we say that it's partially on, meaning they inherited one copy of the dominant form from one parent and one copy of the recessive form from the other parent, which we call this heterozygous. Hetero meaning different, and so they inherited two different forms of the gene. And then we have the third scenario in which they inherit two recessive forms, in which case the appearance is that we call it the totally off condition, or if the horse does not have one of the forms of leopard complex spotting. So to make this a little bit more clear, we know that a horse gets half of its genetic information from dad, which we represent here by the little happy sperm, and half of its information comes from mom, which we represent here by the little happy egg. And what happens is that the DNA for horses are contained on different chromosomes, and there are a total of 32 chromosomes in the horse, which is represented in the figure. You can see chromosome 1 is the largest chromosome, and we see chromosome 31 as the smallest chromosome. And I said that horses have 32 pairs of chromosomes, so they also have chromosomes that determine whether the horse will be a boy or a girl, and we call those sex chromosomes. And you can see those over to the right, designated as an X and a Y. And so horses have 32 pairs. They get one pair from the happy sperm and one pair from the happy egg. And so when the happy sperm and the happy egg come together, poof, we get the horse. And in this instance, we have a happy sperm that just happens to be carrying the dominant form of the leopard complex gene. And then we have a happy egg that is carrying the recessive form. And when they come together, when we have two different forms, that's when we get our heterozygous, and we get the phenotype of partially on.
So as you can see, there is a physical difference in the coat patterning for many Appaloosas that makes it a little bit easy to tell what the horse's probable genotype is. This only works when there's a fair amount of white patterning on the horse. So, for example, if you look at the horse on the left that's heterozygous for LP, it has inherited one copy of that gene, and it shows in its white area on its rump big round oval spots. These oval spots, just like the leopard colt in the last slide, indicate that this horse has inherited one copy. It is the partially on expression of Appaloosa. Now, in the right-hand picture, you can see a snow-capped blanket horse. And this horse's blanket, except for a few flecks of dark here and there, is largely free of those big round oval dark spots. This is a strong indication that this horse has probably inherited two copies of the LP gene. In other words, the coat patterning is being expressed so strongly here that white has canceled out dark. In other words, it's not making pigmented spots. It just has a white patterned area. Now we're back to the question of how two horses with loud coat patterns could end up producing a horse that is what we call a true solid, that has no Appaloosa traits and doesn't have a coat pattern.
So back to our happy egg and sperm. So in the picture on the left, we can see that our stallion, who is heterozygous for the LP gene, has the ability to make sperm that either have the LP gene, like that leopard spotted sperm that you see, but that horse also makes sperm that has the recessive form of the gene, the one that doesn't allow for the expression of Appaloosa patterning, which is the happy, darkly colored in solid sperm. You can breed that horse to a mare that makes eggs that either carries the dominant form of the gene, which is represented by the leopard egg, but she can also make eggs that have the recessive form of the gene or only the off form of the gene, which is represented by the black egg. So then how does the stallion that can make one of these two sperm, bred to this mare that can make one of these two eggs, produce that horse that does not have leopard complex spotting, or that horse that is not Appaloosa spotted? Well, the answer comes into play because the stallion, what the stallion contributed was that solid sperm, and what the mare contributed was that solid egg, and that's how the horse ended up being non-Appaloosa, non-leopard complex